Hi guys, welcome to bedtime stories or just read alouds. I don't have like the most professional ASMR setup, but uh, just reading stories, chilling out. You've got cheddar, well, as close of a representation of cheddar that you have, and milk and cookies. The chill tube. Speaking of cats, please don't hop up here. No, 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 no. Please don't. He heard his name and wanted to hop up here. Okay, I'm gonna give it some time before I start reading and stuff. Last time we did this stream, we started reading Alice in Wonderland. Hi, Kat, and hi, Leo, Wyver, and Uncle Si. It's good to see you all here. Last time we started reading Alice in Wonderland, we got to we stopped at chapter 6. I'm doing all right. I hope you guys are doing well too. How are you doing? And then we took a stop so we could resume Alice in Wonderland, or we could read something else. We could read other stories that you guys suggest. I could read SCP entries, even though that's kind of a spooky story stuff. Whatever you guys suggest, unless you guys just want to go with Alice in Wonderland again. Might be able to finish the book, but I don't know. Thank you, Streamlabs, for reminding everybody. Thank you, people. Anything really? Okay. I think my chat box is a little messed up. Give me a second. You guys seem so squished. Yeah. There we go. Not as squished. Still squished, but not as squished. So I'll probably just continue with Alice in Wonderland because that's what I have up at the moment. But if anyone wants me to read anything else, please feel free to suggest it. And if I feel comfortable or want to read it, I will read it. Whatever makes it more comfortable for you. This is to help you guys relax for the night, chill, maybe fall asleep. Just some chill vibes. You're ready there, about to pass out. Hope I'm feeling better. I am feeling better. Last 2 days was just pain and misery, but today I feel just fine. I mean, I have slight headaches, but otherwise I feel just fine. Thank you. How are you doing, Card? I'm actually going to move my screens around a little bit so I can see chat a little easier. There we go. You're good? Good. I'm glad. All right. Let me situated and get my okay. What I'll do for now is resume Alice in Wonderland from last time. I will try not to be as loud and obnoxious as I was last time and try and read a little slower. I know I tend to read really fast. And But otherwise, it's just chill, relax. I'm not going to be like super whispery because then you won't hear me at all. So, yeah. Um, but again, if you guys have any suggestions or anything you would like me to read, just tell me. And if I am comfortable or able to read it or want to read it, I will read it. All right. I also put, in case you want to know, like, oh, wasn't here for the first half of the story. VODs are all up on my YouTube channel if you want to really know what happened in the first half of the story. Anyway, Chapter 6, Alice in Wonderland. For a minute or two, she stood looking at the house and wondering what to do next, when suddenly a footman in livery came running out of the wood. She considered him to be a footman because he was in livery, otherwise, judging by his face only, she would have called him a fish, and rapped loudly at the door with his knuckles. It was opened by another footman in livery? Sorry, I thought it was livery, but it must be livery, I don't know. With a round face and large eyes like a frog, and both footmen, Alice noticed, had powdered hair that curled all over their heads. She felt very curious to know what it was all about, and crept a little way out of the wood to listen. The fish footman began by producing from under his arm a great letter nearly as large as himself, and this he handed over to the other, saying in a solemn tone, "For the Duchess, an invitation from the Queen to play croquet." The frog footman repeated in the same solemn tone, only changing the order of the words a little, "From the Queen, an invitation for the Duchess to play croquet." They both bowed low, and their curls got entangled together. Alice laughed so much at this that she had to run back into the wood for fear of their hearing her, and when she next peeped out, the fish footman was gone, and the other was sitting on the ground near the door, staring stupidly up into the sky. Alice went timidly up to the door and knocked. "There's no use in knocking," said the footman, "and that for two reasons. First, because I am on the same side of the door as you are. Secondly, because they're making such a noise inside no one would possibly hear you." And certainly there was a most extraordinary noise going on within, a constant howling and sneezing, and every now and then a giant crash, as if a dish or kettle had been broken to pieces. "Please, then," said Alice, "how am I to get in?" "There might be some sense in your knocking," the footman went on, without attending to her. "Oh, thanks, Cat." "If we had the door between us, for instance, if you were inside, you might knock, and I could let you out, you know." He was looking up into the sky all the time while he was speaking, and this Alice thought was decidedly uncivil. "But perhaps we can't help it," she said to herself. "His eyes are so very nearly at the top of his head, but at any rate he might answer questions. How am I to get in?" she repeated aloud. "I shall sit here," the footman remarked, "till tomorrow." At this moment the door of the house. Sorry, I can't read. At this moment the door of the house opened, and a large plate came skimming out straight at the footman's head. It just grazed his nose and broke to pieces against one of the trees behind him. "Or next day, maybe," the footman continued in the same tone, exactly as if nothing bad had happened. "How am I to get in?" Alice asked again in a louder tone. "How are you to get in at all? That's the first question, you know," said the footman. It was, no doubt, only Alice did not like to be told so. "It's really dreadful," she muttered to herself. "The way all the creatures argue, it's enough to drive one crazy." The footman seemed to consider this a good opportunity for repeating his remark, with variations. "I shall sit here, on and off, for days and days." "But what am I to do?" said Alice. "Anything you like," said the footman, and began whistling. "Oh, there's no use in talking to him," said Alice desperately. "He's perfectly idiotic." And she opened the door and went in. The door led straight into a large kitchen, which was full of smoke from one end to the other. The Duchess was sitting on a three-legged stool in the middle, nursing a baby. The cook was leaning over the fire, stirring a large cauldron which seemed to be full of soup. "There's certainly too much pepper in that soup," Alice said to herself, as well as she could for sneezing. There was certainly too much of it in the air. Even the Duchess sneezed occasionally, and the baby was sneezing and howling alternately without a moment's pause. The only things in the kitchen that did not sneeze were the cook and a large cat that was sitting on the hearth and grinning from ear to ear. "Please, would you tell me," said Alice a little timidly, for she was not quite sure whether it was good manners for her to speak first, "why your cat grins like that?" "It's a Cheshire cat," said the Duchess, "and that's why. Pig!" She said the last word with such sudden violence that Alice quite jumped, but she saw in another moment that it was addressed to the baby and not to her, so she took courage and went on again. "I didn't know that Cheshire cats always grinned. In fact, I didn't even know that cats could grin." "They all can," said the Duchess, "and most of them do." "I don't know of any that do," Alice said very politely, feeling quite pleased to have gotten into a conversation. "You don't know much," said the Duchess, "and that's a fact." "Oh, hi, Sunny. Hi. Yes, we're continuing Alice in Wonderland. Alice did not at all like the tone of this remark, and thought it would be as well to introduce some other subject of conversation. While she was trying to fix on one, the cook took the cauldron of soup off the fire, and at once set to work throwing everything within her reach at the Duchess and the baby. The fire irons came first, then followed a shower of saucepans, plates, and dishes. The Duchess took no notice of them even when they hit her, and the baby was howling so much already that it was quite impossible to say whether the blows hurt it or not. "Oh, please mind what you're doing," cried Alice, jumping up and down in agony of terror. "Oh, there goes his precious nose, and an unusually large saucepan flew close by it and very nearly carried it off." "If everybody minded their own business," the Duchess said in a hoarse growl, "the world would go round a deal faster than it does." "Which would not be an advantage," said Alice, who felt very glad to get an opportunity of showing off a little of her knowledge. "Just think what work it would make with the day and night. You see, the earth takes 24 hours to turn round on its axis." "Talking of axes," said the Duchess, "chop off her head." Alice glanced rather anxiously at the cook to see if she meant to take the hint, but the cook was busily engaged in stirring the soup and did not seem to be listening, so she ventured on to go again. 24 hours, I think, or is it 12? Oh, don't bother me," said the Duchess. "I could never abide figures." And with that she began nursing her child again, singing a sort of lullaby to it as she did so, and giving it a violent shake at the end of every line. "Oh. Speak roughly to your little boy, and beat him when he sneezes. He only does it to annoy, because he knows it teases." Oh, well. In which the cook and the baby joined. Wow, wow, wow. I don't know how it's supposed to be sang, so I'm just going with it. While the Duchess sang the second verse of the song, she kept tossing the baby violently up and down, and the poor little thing howled so that Alice could hardly hear the words. "I speak severely to my boy, I beat him when he sneezes, for he can thoroughly enjoy the pepper when he pleases." Wow, wow, wow. "Here, you may nurse it a bit if you like," the Duchess said to Alice, flinging the baby at her as she spoke. "I must go and get ready to play croquet with the Queen." And she hurried out of the room. The cook threw a frying pan after her as she went out, but it just missed her. Alice caught the baby with some difficulty, as it was a queer-shaped little creature and held out its arms and legs in all directions like a starfish. The poor little thing was snorting like a steam engine when she caught it, and kept doubling itself up and straightening itself out again, so that altogether, for the first minute or two, it was as much as she could do to hold it. "You're queer-shaped." Same. As soon as she made out the proper way of nursing it, which was to twist it up into a knot and then keep tight hold of its right ear and left foot as to prevent it from undoing itself, she carried it out into the open air. "If I don't take this child away with me," thought Alice, "they're sure to kill it in a day or two. Wouldn't it be murder to leave it behind?" She said the last words out loud, and the little thing grunted in reply. It had left off sneezing by this time. "Don't grunt," said Alice. "That's not at all a proper way of expressing yourself." The baby grunted again, and Alice looked very anxiously into its face to see what the matter was with it. There could be no doubt that it had a very turned-up nose, much more like a snout than a real nose, and its eyes were getting extremely small for a baby. Altogether, Alice did not like the look of the thing at all, but perhaps it was only sobbing, she thought, and looked into its eyes again to see if there were any tears. No, there were no tears. "If you're going to turn into a pig, my dear," said Alice seriously, "I'll have nothing more to do with you. Mind now." The poor little thing sobbed again, or grunted, it was impossible to say which, and they went on for some while in silence. Alice was just beginning to think to herself, "Now what am I to do with this creature when I get it home?" when it grunted again so violently that she looked down in its face with some alarm. This time there could be no mistake about it. It was neither more or less than a pig, and she felt that it would be quite absurd to carry it any further. So she set the little creature down and felt quite relieved to see it trot quietly away into the wood. "If it had grown up," she said to herself, "it would have made a dreadfully ugly child, but it makes a rather handsome pig, I think." And she began thinking over other children she knew who might do very well as pigs, and was just saying to herself, "If one only knew the right way to change them," when she was a little startled by seeing the Cheshire Cat sitting on a bough of a tree a few yards off. The cat only grinned when it saw Alice. It looked good-natured, she thought. Still it had very long claws and great many teeth, so she felt that it ought to be treated with respect. "Cheshire Puss," she began rather timidly, as she did not at all know whether it would like the name. However, it only grinned a little wider. "Come, it please so far," saw Alice, and she went on. "Would you tell me, please, which way I ought to go from here?" "That depends a good deal on where you want to go," said the cat. "I don't much care where." "Then it doesn't matter which way you go," said the cat. "So long as I get somewhere," Alice added as an explanation. "Oh, you're sure to do that," said the cat, "if you only walk long enough." Alice felt that this could not be denied, so she tried another question. "What sort of people live about here?" "In that direction," the cat said, waving its right paw around, "lives a hatter, and in that direction," waving the other paw, "lives a March hare. Visit either you like, they're both mad." "But I don't want to go among mad people," Alice remarked. "Oh, you can't help that," said the cat. "We're all mad here. I'm mad, you're mad." "How do you know I'm mad?" "You must be," said the cat, "or you wouldn't have come here." Alice didn't think that proved it at all. However, she went on. "And how do you know that you're mad?" "To begin with," said the cat, "a dog's not mad. You grant that?" "I suppose," said Alice. "Well then," the cat went on, "you see a dog growls when it's angry and wags its tail when it's pleased. Now I growl when I'm pleased and wag my tail when I am angry. Therefore, I'm mad." "I call it purring, not growling," said Alice. "Call it what you like," said the cat. "Do you play croquet with the queen today?" "I should like it very much," said Alice, "but I haven't been invited yet." "You'll see me there," said the cat, and then he vanished. Alice was not much surprised at this. She was getting so used to queer things happening. While she was looking at the place where it had been, it suddenly appeared again. "By the by, what became of the baby?" said the cat. "I'd nearly forgotten to ask." "It turned into a pig," Alice quietly said, just as if it had come back in a natural way. "I thought it would," said the cat, and vanished again. Alice waited a little, half expecting to see it again, but it did not appear, and after a minute or two she walked in the direction in which the March hare was said to live. "I've seen hatters before," she said to herself. "The March hare will be much more interesting, and perhaps as this is May, it won't be raving mad, at least not so mad as it was in March." As she said this, she looked up, and there was the cat again, sitting on the branch of a tree. "Did you say pig or fig?" said the cat. "I said pig," said Alice, "and I wish you wouldn't keep appearing and vanishing so suddenly. You make one quite giddy." "All right," said the cat, and this time it vanished quite slowly, beginning with the end of the tail and ending with the grin, which remained some time after the rest of it had gone. "Well, it's often seen a cat without a grin," thought Alice, "but a grin without a cat, it's the most curious thing I ever saw in all my life." She had not gone much further before she came in sight of the house of the March hare. She thought it might be the right house because the chimneys were shaped like ears and the roof was thatched with fur. It was so large a house that she did not like to go nearer till she had nibbled some more of the left-hand bit of mushroom, and raised herself to about 2 feet high. Even then she walked up towards it rather timidly, saying to herself, "Suppose it should be raving mad after all. I almost wish I'd gone to see the hatter instead." Chapter 7. Hi, Kiri. Hi. Welcome. Welcome to my bedtime story ASMR-ish. or reading Alice in Wonderland, or continuing it from the last time I started reading it. Just hit chapter 7. How are you doing? I hope you're doing well. Okay, let me get a drink first. Chapter 7. I'm in bed right now because I started feeling pretty bad all of a sudden. Oh no, I'm sorry. I hope you're not getting sick or anything, or sore. Well, hopefully this stream will help you relax and chill while I read stories and you can go to sleep. How's it going? It's going pretty good. Past 2 days I felt horribly miserable, but today is a good day. Today's been really good. You don't get sick, you're too cool. I mean, that's true, you are very cool. Chapter 7. There was a table set out under a tree in front of the house, and the March Hare and the Hatter were having tea at it. A dormouse was sitting between them, fast asleep, and the other two were using it as a cushion, resting their elbows on it and talking over its head. Very uncomfortable for the dormouse, thought Alice. Only as it's asleep, suppose it doesn't mind. The table was a large one, but the three were all crowded together at one corner of it. No room, no room, they cried out when they saw Alice coming. There's plenty of room, said Alice indignantly, as she sat down in a large armchair at one end of the table. Have some wine, the March Hare said in an encouraging tone. Alice looked all around the table, but there was nothing on it but tea. I don't see any wine, she remarked. There isn't any, said the March Hare. Then it wasn't very civil of you to offer it, said Alice angrily. It wasn't very civil of you to sit down without being invited, said the March Hare. I didn't know it was your table. It's laid for a great many more than 3. Your hair wants cutting, said the Hatter. He had been looking at Alice for some time with great curiosity, and this was his first speech. You should learn not to make personal remarks, Alice said with some severity. It's very rude. The Hatter opened its eyes very wide on hearing this, but all he said was, Why is a raven like a writing desk? Come, we shall have some fun now, thought Alice. I'm glad they've begun asking riddles. I believe I can guess that, she added aloud. Do you mean that you think you can find out the answer to it? Said the March Hare. Exactly so, said Alice. Then you should say what you mean, the March Hare went on. I do, Alice hastily replied. At least I mean what I say. That's the same thing, you know. Not the same thing a bit. You'll be lurking and try and sleep a bit. Okay. I hope you get some good sleep. Thanks for stopping by. Not the same thing a bit, said the Hatter. Why, you might just as well say that I see what I eat is the same thing as I eat what I see. You might as well just say that I like what I get is the same as I get what I like. The Dormouse added, You might as well just say, which seemed to be talking in his sleep, that I breathe when I sleep is the same when I sleep as I breathe. It is the same thing with you, said the Hatter, and here the conversation dropped, and the party sat silent for a minute, while Alice thought all over she could remember about ravens and writing desks, which isn't much. The Hatter was the first to break the silence. What day of the month is it? He said, turning to Alice. He had taken his watch out of his pocket and was looking at it uneasily, shaking it every now and then and holding it to his ear. Alice considered a little and then said, The 4th? 2 days wrong, said the Hatter. I told you butter would not suit the works, he added, looking angrily at the March Hare. It was the best butter, the March Hare meekly replied. Yes, but some crumbs must have gotten in as well, the Hatter grumbled. You shouldn't have put it in with the bread knife. The March Hare took the watch and looked at it gloomily. Then he dipped it into his cup of tea and looked at it again, and then he could think of nothing better to say than his first remark. It was the best butter, you know. Alice had been looking over his shoulder with some curiosity. What a funny watch, she remarked. It tells the day of the month and doesn't tell what o'clock it is. Why should it? Muttered the Hatter. Does your watch tell you what year it is? Of course not, Alice replied very readily, but that's because it says the same year for such a long time together. Which is just the case with mine, said the Hatter. Alice felt dreadfully puzzled. The Hatter's remark seemed to have no meaning in it, and yet it was certainly English. I don't quite understand, she said as politely as she could. The Dormouse is asleep again, said the Hatter, and he poured a little hot tea upon its nose. The Dormouse shook it off impatiently and said, without opening its eyes, Of course, just what I want going to remark myself. Have you guessed the riddle yet? The Hatter said, turning to Alice again. No, I give up, Alice replied. What's the answer? I haven't the slightest idea, said the Hatter. Nor I, said the March Hare. Alice sighed wearily. I think you might do something better with the time, she said, than wasting it asking riddles with no answers. If you knew time as well as I do, said the Hatter, you wouldn't talk about wasting it. It's him. Well, I don't know what you mean. Of course you don't, the Hatter said, tossing his head contemptuously. I dare say you never spoke to time. Perhaps not, Alice cautiously replied, but I know I have to beat time when I learn music. Ah, that accounts for it, said the Hatter. He won't stand beating. Now, if you only kept on good terms with him, he'd do almost anything you like with the clock. For instance, suppose it were 9 o'clock in the morning, just time to begin lessons. You'd only have to whisper a hint to time, and round goes the clock in a twinkling. 1:30, time for dinner. That would be grand, certainly, said Alice thoughtfully, but then I shouldn't be hungry for it, you know. Not at first, perhaps, said the Hatter, but you could keep it to 1:30 as long as you liked. Is that the way you manage? Alice asked. The Hatter shook his head mournfully. Not I, he replied. We quarrelled last March, just before he went mad, you know, pointing with his teaspoon to the March Hare. It was at the great concert given by the Queen of Hearts, and I had to sing. Twinkle, twinkle, little bat, how I wonder where you're at. You know that song, perhaps? I've heard something like it, said Alice. It goes on, you know, the Hatter continued, in this way. Up above the world you fly, like a tea tray in the sky. Twinkle, twinkle. Here the Dormouse shook itself and began singing in its sleep. Twinkle, 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 and went on so long that they had to pinch it to make it stop. Well, I hardly finished the first verse, said the Hatter, when the Queen jumped up and bawled out, He's murdering the time, off with his head. How dreadfully savage, exclaimed Alice. And ever since that, the Hatter went on in a mournful tone, he won't do a thing I ask. It's always 6 o'clock now. A bright idea came into Alice's head. Is that the reason so many tea things are put out here? She asked. Yes, that's it, said the Hatter with a sigh. It's always tea time, and we've no time to wash the things between whiles. Then you keep moving around, I suppose? Said Alice. Exactly so, said the Hatter, as the things get used up. But what happens when you come to the beginning again? Alice ventured to ask. Suppose we change the subject, the March Hare interrupted, yawning. I'm getting tired of this. I bet the young lady tells us a story. I'm afraid I don't know one, said Alice, rather alarmed at the proposal. Then the Dormouse shall, they both cried. Wake up, Dormouse, and they pinched it on both sides at once. The Dormouse slowly opened his eyes. I wasn't asleep, he said in a hoarse, feeble voice. I heard every word you fellows were saying. Tell us a story, said the March Hare. Yes, please do, said Alice. And be quick about it, said the Hatter, or you'll be asleep again before it's done. Once upon a time there were 3 little sisters, the Dormouse began in a great hurry, and their names were Elsie, Lacie, and Tilly, and they lived at the bottom of the well. What did they live on? Said Alice, who always took a great interest in questions of eating and drinking. They lived on treacle, said the Dormouse after thinking a minute or two. They couldn't have done that, you know, Alice gently remarked. They'd have gone ill. So they were, said the Dormouse, very ill. Alice tried a little to fancy herself what such an extraordinary way of living would be like, but it puzzled her too much, so she went on, But why did they live at the bottom of the well? To take some more tea, said the Hare to Alice very earnestly. I've had nothing yet, Alice replied in an offended tone, so I can't take more. You mean you can't take less, said the Hatter. It's very easy to take more than nothing. Nobody asked your opinion, said Alice. Who's making remarks now? The Hatter asked triumphantly. Alice did not quite know what to say to this, so she helped herself to some tea and bread and butter, and then returned to the Dormouse and repeated her question. Why did they live at the bottom of the well? The Dormouse took a minute or two to think about it, then said, It was a treacle well. There's no such thing, Alice says, beginning very angrily, but the Hatter and March Hare went shush, 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 and the Dormouse sulkily remarked, If you can't be civil, you'd better finish the story for yourself. No, please go on, Alice said very humbly. I won't interrupt you again. I dare say there may be one. What indeed, said the Dormouse indignantly. However, he consented to go on. And so these three little sisters, they were learning to draw, you know. What did they draw? Said Alice, quite forgetting her promise. Treacle, said the Dormouse, without considering at all this time. I want to clean up, interrupted the Hatter. Let's all move one place on. He moved as he spoke, and the Dormouse followed him. The March Hare moved into the Dormouse place, and Alice rather unwillingly took the place of the March Hare. The Hatter was the only one who got on any advantage from the change, and Alice was a good deal worse off than before, as the March Hare had just upset the milk jug into his plate. Alice did not wish to offend the Dormouse again, so she began very cautiously. But I don't understand. Why did they draw the treacle from? You can draw water out of a water well, said the Hatter, so I should think you could draw a treacle out of a treacle well. Stupid. But they were in the well, Alice said to the Dormouse, not choosing to notice this last remark. Of course they were, said the Dormouse. Well, in. The answer confused poor Alice, that she let the Dormouse go on for some time without interrupting it. They were learning to draw, the Dormouse went on, yawning and rubbing its eyes, for it was getting very sleepy. And they drew all manner of things, everything that begins with an M. I with an M, said Alice. Why not, said the March Hare. Alice was silent. Dormouse had closed its eyes by this time and was going off into a doze, but on being pinched by the Hatter, it woke up again with a little shriek and went on. That begins with an M, such as mousetraps and the moon, and memory, and munchness. You know how you say things are much of a muchness? Did you ever see such a thing as a drawing of a muchness? Really, now you ask me, said Alice, very much confused. I don't think. Then you shouldn't talk, said the Hatter. This piece of rudeness was more than Alice could bear. She got up in great disgust and walked off. The Dormouse fell asleep instantly, and neither of the others took the least notice of her going, though she looked back once or twice, half hoping they would call after her. The last time she saw them, they were trying to put the Dormouse into the teapot. At any rate, I'll never go there again, said Alice as she picked her way through the wood. It's the stupidest tea party I ever was at in all my life. Just as she said this, she noticed that one of the trees had a door leading right into it. That's very curious, she thought, but everything's curious today. I think I might as well go in the house. And in she went. Once more she found herself in the long hall, and close to the little glass table. Now I'll manage better this time, she said to herself, and began by taking the little golden key and unlocking the door that led into the garden. Then she set to work nibbling at the mushroom. She had kept a piece of it in her pocket, till she was about a foot high. Sorry. Then she walked down the little passage, and then she found herself at last in the beautiful garden, among the bright flower beds and the cool fountains. Chapter 8. Hope everyone's doing okay. Enjoying the story or something. Chapter 8. A large rose tree stood near the entrance of the garden. The roses growing on it were white, but there were 3 gardeners at it, busily painting them all red. Alice thought this was a very curious thing, and she went nearer to watch them, and just as she came up to them, she heard one of them say, "Look out now, 5, don't go splashing paint over me like that." I couldn't help it, said 5 in a sulky tone. 7 jogged my elbow. On which 7 looked up and said, "That's right, 5, always lay the blame on others." "You better not talk," said 5. "I heard the Queen say only yesterday you deserved to be beheaded." "What for?" said the one who had first spoken. "That's none of your business, 2, said 7. "Yes, it is his business," said 5, "and I'll tell him it was for bringing the cooked tulip roots instead of onions." 7 flung down his brush and had just begun. Well, all of the unjust things, when his eye chanced to fall upon Alice, as she stood watching them, and he checked himself suddenly. The others looked around also, and all of them bowed low. "Would you tell me," said Alice a little timidly, "why are you painting those roses?" 5 and 7 said nothing, but looked at 2. 2 began in a low voice, "Why, the fact is, you see, miss, this here ought to have been a red rose tree, and we put a white one in by mistake, and if the Queen was to find it out, we should all have our heads cut off, you know. So you see, miss, we're doing our best before she comes to—" At this moment 5, who had been anxiously looking across the garden, called out, "The Queen! The Queen!" and the 3 gardeners instantly threw themselves flat upon their faces, where there was a sound of many footsteps, and Alice looked around, eager to see the Queen. First came 10 soldiers carrying clubs. These were all shaped like the three gardeners, oblong and flat, with their hands and feet at the corners. Next, the 10 courtiers. These were ornamented all over with diamonds, and walked 2 and 2, as the soldiers did. After these came the royal children. There were 10 of them, and the little dears came jumping merrily along hand in hand, in couples. They were all ornamented with hearts. Next came the guests, mostly kings and queens, and among them Alice recognized the White Rabbit. It was talking in a hurried, nervous manner, smiling at everything that was said, and went by without noticing her. Then, followed by the Knave of Hearts, carrying the king's crown and a crimson velvet cushion, the last of all this grand procession came the King and Queen of Hearts. Alice was rather doubtful whether she ought to lie down on her face like the three gardeners, but she could not remember ever having heard of such a rule at processions. And besides, what would be the use of a procession, she thought, if people had to lie down upon their faces so they just couldn't see it? So she stood still where she was and waited. When the procession came opposite to Alice, they all stopped and looked at her, and the queen said severely, "Who is this?" She said it to the Knave of Hearts, who only bowed and replied in reply. "Idiot!" said the queen, tossing her head impatiently, and turning to Alice, and she went on, "What is your name, child?" "My name is Alice, so please your majesty," she said very politely, but she added to herself, "Why, they're only a pack of cards, after all. I don't need to be afraid of them." "Who are these?" said the queen, pointing to the three gardeners who were lying around the rose tree, for you see, as they were lying on their faces, and the pattern on their backs was the same as the rest of the pack, she could not tell whether they were gardeners or soldiers or courtiers, or 3 of her own children. "How should I know?" said Alice, surprised at her own courage. "It's no business of mine." The queen turned crimson with fury, and after glaring at her for a moment like a wild beast, screamed, "Off with her head! Off!" "Nonsense!" said Alice very loudly and decidedly, and the queen was silent. The king laid his hand upon her arm and timidly said, "Consider, my dear, she is only a child." The queen turned angrily away from him and said to the knave, "Turn them over." The knave did so, very carefully, with one foot. "Get up," said the queen in a shrill, loud voice, and the 3 gardeners instantly jumped up and began bowing to the king, the queen, and the royal children, and everybody else. "Leave off that," screamed the queen. "You make me giddy." And then turning to the rose tree, she went on, "And what have you been doing here?" "May it please your majesty," said 2 in a very humble tone, going down on one knee as he spoke, we were trying—" "I see," said the queen, who had meanwhile been examining the roses. "Off with their heads!" And the procession moved on, 3 of the soldiers remaining behind to execute the unfortunate gardeners, who ran to Alice for protection. "You shan't be beheaded," said Alice, as she put them into a large flower pot that stood near. The 3 soldiers wandered about for a minute or two, looking for them, and then quietly marched off after the others. "Are their heads off?" said the queen. "Their heads are gone, if it pleases your majesty," the soldiers shouted in reply. "That's right," shouted the queen. "Can you play croquet?" The soldiers were silent and looked at Alice, as the last question was evidently meant for her. "Yes," shouted Alice. "Come on, then," roared the queen, and Alice joined the procession, wondering very much what would happen next. "It's a very fine day," said a timid voice at her side. She was walking by the rabbit, who was peeping anxiously to her. "Yes," said Alice. "Where's the Duchess?" "Hush, hush, hush," said the rabbit in a low, hurried tone. He looked anxiously over his shoulder as he spoke, and then raised himself upon tiptoe, and his mouth close to her ear, and whispered, "She's under sentence of execution." "What for?" said Alice. "Did you say what a pity?" the rabbit asked. "No, I didn't," said Alice. "I don't know what it's all at all a pity. I said, what for?" "She boxed the queen's ears," the rabbit began. Alice gave a little scream of laughter. "Oh, hush," the rabbit whispered in a frightened tone. "The queen will hear you. You see, she came rather late, and the queen said—" "Get to your places," shouted the queen in a voice of thunder, and people began running in all directions, tumbling up against each other. However, they got settled down in a minute or two, and the game began. Alice thought she had never seen such a curious croquet ground in all her life. It was all ridges and furrows. The balls were live hedgehogs, and the mallets were live flamingos, and the soldiers had to double themselves up to stand upon their hands and feet to make the arches. The chief difficulty... Okay, sorry, reading this was a little weird. The chief difficulty Alice found at first was in managing her flamingo. She succeeded in getting its body tucked away comfortably enough under her arm with its legs hanging down, but generally she just as she had got the neck nicely straightened out and was going to give the hedgehog a blow with its head, it would twist itself round and look up in her face with such a puzzled expression that she would not help burst out laughing. And when she had got its head down and was going to begin again, it was very provoking to find that the hedgehog had unrolled itself and was in fact crawling away. Besides all this, there was generally a ridge or a furrow in the way wherever she wanted to send the hedgehog to, and as the doubled-up soldiers were always getting up and walking off to the other parts of the ground, Alice soon came to the conclusion that it was a very difficult game indeed. That whole paragraph was one sentence. Anyway. The players all played at once without waiting for turns, quarreling all the while and fighting for the hedgehogs, and in a very short time the queen was in a furious passion and went stamping about and shouting, "Off with his head! Off with her head!" about once in a minute. Alice began to feel very uneasy. To be sure, she had not as yet had any dispute with the queen, but she knew that it might happen any minute, and then she thought, "What would become of me? They're dreadfully fond of beheading people here. A great wonder is that there's any one left alive." She was looking about for some way of escape, and wondering whether she could get away without being seen, when she noticed a curious appearance in the air. It puzzled her very much at first, but after watching it for a minute or two, she made it out to be a grin, and she said to herself, "It's the Cheshire Cat. Now I shall have somebody to talk to." "How are you getting on?" said the cat, as there was a mouth enough for it to speak with. Alice waited till the eyes appeared, and then nodded. "It's no use speaking to it," she thought, "till its ears have come, or at least one of them." In another minute the whole head appeared, and then Alice put down her flamingo and began an account of the game, feeling very glad that she had someone to listen to her. The cat seemed to think that there was enough of it now in sight, and no more of it appeared. "I don't think they play it all fairly," Alice began in a rather complaining tone, "and they all quarrel so dreadfully. One can't hear oneself speak, and they don't seem to have any rules in particular. At least, if there are, nobody attends to them, and you've no idea how confusing it all is a thing of being alive. For instance, there's the arch that I have to go through next walking about at the other end of the ground, and I should have croqueted the queen's hedgehog just now. It only ran away when it saw mine coming." "How do you like the queen?" said the cat in a low voice. "Not at all," said Alice. "She's so extremely—" And then she noticed that the queen was close behind her listening as she went on, "likely to win that it's hardly worth while finishing the game." The queen smiled and passed on. "Who are you talking to?" said the king, coming up to Alice and looking at the cat's head with great curiosity. "It's a friend of mine, a Cheshire Cat," said Alice. "Allow me to introduce it." "I don't like the look of it at all," said the king. "However, it may kiss my hand if it likes." "I'd rather not," the cat remarked. "Don't be impatient," said the king, "and don't look at me like that." He got behind Alice as he spoke. "A cat may look at a king," said Alice. "I've read that in some book, but I don't remember where." "Well, it must be removed," said the king very decidedly, and he called to the queen, who was passing at the moment. "My dear, I wish you would have this cat removed." The queen had only one way of settling all difficulties, great or small. "Off with his head," she said, without even looking around. "I'll fetch the executioner myself," said the king eagerly, and he hurried off. Alice thought she might as well go back and see how the game was going on, as she heard the queen's voice in the distance screaming with passion. She had already heard her sentence three of the players to be executed for having missed their turns, and she did not like the look of things at all, as this game was in such confusion that she never knew whether it was her turn or not, so she went in search of her hedgehog. The hedgehog was engaged in a fight with another hedgehog, which seemed to Alice an excellent opportunity for croqueting one of them with the other. The only difficulty was that her flamingo has gone across to the other side of the garden, where Alice could see it trying in a helpless sort of way to fly up into one of the trees. By the time she caught the flamingo and brought it back, the fight was over, and both the hedgehogs were out of sight. "But it doesn't matter much," thought Alice, "as all the arches are gone from this side of the ground." So she tucked it under her arm, and it might not escape again, and went back for a little more conversation with her friend. When she got back to the Cheshire Cat, she was surprised to find quite a large crowd collected around it. There was a dispute going on between the executioner, the king, and the queen, who were all talking at once, while the rest were all quite silent and looked very uncomfortable. The moment Alice appeared, she was appealed to by all three to settle the question, and they repeated their arguments to her, though as they all spoke at once, she found it very hard to make out exactly what they said. The executioner's argument was that you couldn't cut off a head unless there was a body to cut it off from, that he had never had to do such a thing before, and he wasn't going to begin at his time of life. The king's argument was that anything that had a head could be beheaded and that you weren't to talk nonsense. The queen's argument was that if something wasn't done about it in less than no time, she'd had everybody executed all around. It was this last remark that had made the whole party look so grave and anxious. Alice could think of nothing else to say but, "It belongs to the Duchess. You better go ask her about it." "She's in prison," said the queen to the executioner. "Fetch her here." And the executioner went off like an arrow. The cat's head began fading away the moment he was gone, and by the time he had come back with the Duchess, it had entirely disappeared. So the king and the executioner ran wildly up and down looking for it, while the rest of the party went back to the game. Chapter 9. I have no idea how much longer. I think we're getting close to the end of the book, but we'll see. Time to take some tea, sorry. Hope everybody's doing good and chilling out. Chapter 9. "You can't think how glad I am to see you again, you dear old thing," said the Duchess as she tucked her arm affectionately into Alice's as they walked off together. "Making mozzarella sticks? Oh, nice. That actually sounds really good. That sounds really good today. Make me some too." Alice was very glad to find her in such a pleasant temper, and thought to herself that perhaps it was only the pepper that had made her so savage when they met in the kitchen. "When I'm the Duchess," she said to herself, not in a very hopeful tone, though, "I won't have any pepper in my kitchen at all. Soup does very well without. Maybe it's always pepper that makes people hot-tempered," she went on, very much pleased at having found out a new kind of rule, "and vinegar that makes them sour, and chamomile that makes them bitter, and barley sugar, and such things that make children sweet-tempered. I only wish people knew that, and then they wouldn't be so stingy about it, you know." She had quite forgotten the Duchess by this time, and was a little startled when she heard her voice close to her ear. "You're thinking about something, my dear, and that makes you forget to talk. I can't tell you just now what moral of that is, but I shall remember it in a bit." "Perhaps it hasn't one," Alice ventured to remark. "Tut, tut, child," said the Duchess. "Everything's got a moral, if only you can find it." And she squeezed herself up closer to Alice's side as she spoke. Alice did not like much her keeping so close to her, first because the Duchess was very ugly, and secondly because she was exactly the right height to rest her chin on Alice's shoulder, and it was an uncomfortably sharp chin. However, she did not like to be rude, and so she bore it as well as she could. The game's going on rather better now," she said, "by the way of keeping up the conversation a little." "'Tis so," said the Duchess, "and the moral of that is, oh, 'tis love that makes the world go round." "Somebody said," Alice whispered, "that it's done by everybody minding their own business." "Ah, well, it means much the same thing," said the Duchess, digging her sharp little chin into Alice's shoulder. She added, "and the moral of that is, take care of the sense, and the sounds will take care of themselves." "How fond she is of finding morals in things," Alice thought to herself. "I dare say you're wondering why I don't put my arm around your waist," the Duchess said after a pause. "The reason is that I'm doubtful about the temper of your flamingo. Shall I try the experiment?" "He might bite," Alice cautiously replied, not feeling at all anxious to have the experiment tried. "Very true," said the Duchess. "Flamingos and mustard both bite, and the moral of that is, birds of a feather flock together." "Only mustard isn't a bird," Alice remarked. "Right as usual," said the Duchess. "What a clear way you have of putting things." "It's a mineral, I think," said Alice. "Of course it is," said the Duchess, who seemed ready to agree with everything that Alice said. "There's a large mustard mine near here, and the moral of that is, the more there is of mine, the less there is of yours." "Oh, I know," exclaimed Alice, who had not attended to this last remark. "It's a vegetable. It doesn't look like one, but it is." "I quite agree with you," said the Duchess, "and the moral of that is, be what you would seem to be, or if you would like to put it more simply, never imagine yourself not to be otherwise than what it might appear to others that what you were or might have been was not otherwise than what you had been would have appeared to them to be otherwise." What? Anyway, "I think I should understand that better," Alice said very politely, "if I had written it down, but I couldn't quite follow it as you say it." "Are you having a stroke?" I think so. That was really hard to read. My brain did not want to read it like that. It really didn't. But that's what it says. Man, that hurt. There's nothing to what I could say if I chose, the Duchess replied in a pleased tone. Pray don't trouble yourself to say that any longer than that, said Alice. Oh, don't talk about trouble, said the Duchess. I make you a present of everything I've said as yet. A cheap short of present, saw Alice. I'm glad they don't give birthday presents like that, but she did not venture to say it out loud. Thinking again, the Duchess asked with another dig of her sharp little chin. I have a right to think, said Alice sharply, for she was beginning to feel a little worried. Just about as much right, said the Duchess, as pigs have to fly, and But here, to Alice's great surprise, the Duchess's voice died away, even in the middle of her favorite word moral, and the arm that was linked into hers began to tremble. Alice looked up, and there stood the Queen in front of them with her arms folded, frowning like a thunderstorm. A fine day, your Majesty, the Duchess began in a low, weak voice. Now I give you a fair warning, said the Queen, stamping in the ground as she spoke. Either you or your head must be off, and then in about half no time take your choice. The Duchess took her choice and was gone in a moment. Let's go on with the game, the Queen said to Alice, and Alice was too much frightened to say anything, but slowly followed her back to the croquet ground. The other guests had taken advantage of the Queen's absence and were resting in the shade. However, the moment they saw her, they hurried back to the game, the Queen merely remarking that a moment's delay would cost them their lives. All the time they were playing, the Queen never left off quarreling with the other players and shouting, off with his head, or off with her head. Those whom she sentenced were taken into custody by the soldiers, who of course had to leave off being archers to do this, so at the end of half an hour or so there were no archers left, and all the players, except the King, the Queen, and Alice, were in custody under sentence of execution. Sorry. Then the Queen left off, quite out of breath, and said to Alice, Have you seen the Mock Turtle yet? No, said Alice. I don't even know what a Mock Turtle is. It's a thing Mock Turtle soup is made from, said the Queen. I never saw one or heard of one, said Alice. Come on, then, said the Queen, and he shall tell you his history. As they walked off together, Alice heard the King say in a low voice, to the company generally, You are all pardoned. Come, that's a good thing, she thought, for she had felt quite unhappy at the number of executions the Queen had ordered. They very soon came upon a griffin, lying fast asleep in the sun. If you don't know what a griffin is, look at a picture. Up, lazy thing, said the Queen, and take this young lady to see the Mock Turtle and to hear his story. I must go back and see after some executions I have ordered. And she walked off, leaving Alice alone with the griffin. Alice did not quite like the look of this creature, but on the whole she thought it would be quite as safe to stay with it as to go after that savage Queen, so she waited. The griffin sat up and rubbed its eyes. Then it watched the Queen until she was out of sight, and then it chuckled. What fun, said the griffin, half to itself and half to Alice. What is the fun? Said Alice. Why, said the griffin. It's all her fancy that they never executes nobody, you know. Come on. Everybody says, come on, here, thought Alice as she went slowly after it. I never was so ordered about in my life, never. They had not gone far before they saw the Mock Turtle in the distance, sitting sad and lonely on a little ledge of rock, and as they came nearer, Alice could hear him sighing as if his heart could break. She pitied him deeply. What is his sorrow? She asked. What is his sorrow? She asked the griffin. You good, Meatball? You good? Okay. Okay. And the griffin answered, Why, very nearly in the same words as before, It's all his fancy that. He hasn't got no sorrow, you know. Come on. So they went up to the Mock Turtle, who looked at them with large eyes full of tears, but said nothing. Is that Meatball snoring? It's him invert sneezing. Smush-faced dogs do an invert sneezing thing where they, like, snort really heavily, but he's not snoring. This here young lady, said the griffin, she wants to know your history, she do. I'll tell it to her, said the Mock Turtle in a deep, hollow tone. Sit down, both of you, and don't speak a word till I've finished. So they sat down, and nobody spoke for some minutes. Alice thought to herself, I don't see how he can ever finish if he doesn't begin. But she waited patiently. Once, the Mock Turtle said at last, with a deep sigh, I was a real turtle. Those words were followed by a very long silence, broken only by an occasional exclamation of from the griffin at the constant heavy sobbing of the Mock Turtle. Alice was very nearly getting up and saying, "Thank you, sir, for your interesting story," but she could not help thinking there must be more to come, so she sat still and said nothing. "When we were little," the Mock Turtle went on at last, more calmly, though still sobbing a little now and then, "we went to school in the sea. The master was an old turtle. We used to call him Tortoise." "Why did you call him Tortoise if he wasn't one?" Alice asked. "We called him Tortoise because he taught us," said the Mock Turtle angrily. "Really, you are very dull." "You ought to be ashamed of yourself for asking such a simple—" "Oh, whoa, sorry, wrong voice. You ought to be ashamed of yourself for asking such a simple question," added the Griffin. Then they both sat silent and looked at poor Alice, who felt ready to sink into the earth. At last the Griffin said to the Mock Turtle, "Drive on, old fellow. Don't be all day about it." And he went on in these words. "Yes, we went to school in the sea, though you mayn't believe it." "I never said I didn't," interrupted Alice. "You did," said the Mock Turtle. "Hold your tongue," added the Griffin. Before Alice could speak again, the Mock Turtle went on. "We had the best of educations. In fact, we went to school every day." "I've been to a day school too," said Alice. "You needn't be so proud as all that." "With extras?" said the Mock Turtle a little anxiously. "Yes," said Alice. "We have learned French and music." "And washing?" said the Mock Turtle. "Certainly not," Alice said indignantly. "Ah, then yours wasn't a really good school," said the Mock Turtle in a tone of relief. "Now at ours they had at end of the bill French, music, and washing extra." "You couldn't have wanted it much," said Alice, "living at the bottom of the sea." "I couldn't afford to learn it," the Mock Turtle said with a sigh. "I only took the regular course." "What was that?" inquired Alice. "Reeling and writhing, of course, to begin with," the Mock Turtle replied, "and then the different branches of arithmetic, ambition, distraction, uglification, and derision." "I've never heard of uglification," Alice ventured to say. "What is it?" The Griffin lifted both of his arms in surprise. "Never heard of uglifying!" it exclaimed. "You know what to beautify is, I suppose?" "Yeah," said Alice doubtfully. "It means to make anything prettier." "Well then," the Griffin went on, "if you don't know what to uglify is, you are a simpleton." Alice did not feel encouraged to ask any more questions, so she turned to the Mock Turtle and said, "What else had you to learn?" "Well, there was a mystery," the Mock Turtle replied, counting off the subjects on his flappers. "Mystery, ancient and modern, with geography, then drawling. The drawling master was an old conger eel that used to come once a week. He taught us drawling, stretching, and fainting in coils." "What was that like?" said Alice. "Well, I can't show you it myself," the Mock Turtle said. "I'm too stiff, and the Griffin never learnt it." "Hadn't time," said the Griffin. "I went to the classical master, though. He was an old crab, he was." "I never went to him," the Mock Turtle said with a sigh. "He taught laughing and grief, they used to say." So he did," said the Griffin, sighing in his turn. And both creatures hid their faces in their paws. "About how many hours a day did you do lessons?" said Alice, in a hurry to change the subject. 10 hours the first day," said the Mock Turtle, 9 the next, and so on. "What a curious plan!" exclaimed Alice. "That's the reason they're called lessons," the Griffin remarked, "because they lessen from day to day." That is quite a new idea to Alice, and she thought over it a little before she made her next remark. "Then the 11th day must have been a holiday." "Of course it was," said the Mock Turtle. "And how did you manage on the 12th?" Alice went on eagerly. "That's enough about lessons," the Griffin interrupted in a very decided tone. "Tell her something about the games now." Chapter 10. Oy. Oy, oy, oy. This story definitely has lots of tongue twisters. Okay. Chapter 10. The Mock Turtle sighed deeply and drew the back of one flapper across its eyes. He looked at Alice and tried to speak, but for a minute or two sobs choked his voice. "Same as if he had a bone in his throat," said the Griffin, and it set to work shaking him and punching him in the back. At last the Mock Turtle recovered his voice and, with tears running down his cheeks, went on again. "You may not have lived much under the sea." "I haven't," said Alice. "And perhaps you were never even introduced to a lobster." Alice began to say, "I once tasted," but checked herself hastily and said, "No, never." "So you can have the idea that a delightful thing a lobster quadrille is." "No, indeed," said Alice. "What sort of a dance is it?" "Why," said the Griffin, "you first form into a line along the seashore." "Two lines," cried the Mock Turtle, "seals, turtles, and so on. Then you clear the jellyfish out of the way." "That generally takes some time," said the Griffin. "You advance twice, with each lobster as a partner. cried the Gryphon. Of course, the Mock Turtle said. Advance twice, set to partners. Change lobsters, retire the same order, continued the Gryphon. Then you know, the Mock Turtle went on, you throw the lobsters, shouted the Gryphon with a bound into the air. As far out to the sea as you can. Swim after them, screamed the Gryphon. Turn a somersault into the sea, cried the Mock Turtle, capering wildly about. Change lobsters again, yelled the Gryphon. Back to land again, and that's all the first figure, said the Mock Turtle, suddenly dropping his voice, and the two creatures, who had been jumping about like mad things all this time, sat down again very sadly and quietly and looked at Alice. It must be a very pretty dance, said Alice timidly. Would you like to see a little of it? Said the Mock Turtle. Very much indeed, said Alice. Come, let's try the first figure, said the Mock Turtle to the Gryphon. We can't do it without lobsters, you know. Which shall sing? Oh, you sing, said the Gryphon. I've forgotten the words. So they began solemnly dancing round and round Alice, every now and then treading on their toes as they passed too close, and waving their fore paws to mark the time, while the Mock Turtle sang this very slowly and sadly. Will you walk a little faster? Said a whiting to a snail. There's a porpoise close behind us, and he's treading on my tail. See how eagerly the lobsters and the turtles all advance. They are waiting on the shingle. Will you come and join the dance? Oh, I don't. I feel like I should know how this song is sang, but I don't. Will you, won't you, will you, won't you join the dance? Will you, won't you, will you, won't you join the dance? You can really have no notion how delightful it will be when they take us up and throw us with the lobsters out to sea. But the snail replied, too far, and gave a look askance. Said he thanked the whiting kindly, that he would not join the dance. Would not, could not, would not, could not, would not join the dance. Would not, could not, would not, could not join the dance. What matters is how far we go, the scaly friend replied. There is another shore, you know, upon the other side. The farther off from England, the nearer is to France. Then turn not pale, beloved snail, and you can join the dance. Will you, won't you, will you, won't you, will you join the dance? Will you, won't you, will you, won't you join the dance? Thank you, it's a very interesting dance to watch, said Alice, feeling very glad that it was over at last. And I do like that curious song about the whiting. Oh, as to the whiting, said the Mock Turtle, you've seen them, of course. Yeah, said Alice, I've seen them oftentimes at She checked herself hastily. I don't know where Din may be, said the Turtle, but if you've seen them so often, of course you know what they're like. Of course, I believe so, Alice replied thoughtfully. They have their tails in their mouths, and they're all over crumbs. You're wrong about the crumbs, said the Mock Turtle. Crumbs would all wash off in the sea, but they have their tails in their mouths, and the reason is... Here the Mock Turtle yawned and shut his eyes. Tell her about the reason and all that, he said to the Gryphon. The reason is, said the Gryphon, that they would go with the lobsters to the dance, so they got thrown out to the sea, so they had to fall a long way. So they got their tails fast in their mouths, so they couldn't get them out again. That's all. Thank you, said Alice. It's very interesting. I never knew so much about a whiting before. I can tell you more than that if you like, said the Gryphon. Do you know why it's called a whiting? I never thought about it. Why? It does the boots and shoes, the Gryphon replied very solemnly. Alice was thoroughly puzzled. Does the boots and shoes? She repeated in a wondering tone. Why, where are your shoes done with? Said the Gryphon. I mean, what makes them so shiny? Alice looked down at them and considered a little before she gave the answer. They're done with blacking, I believe. Boots and shoes under the sea, the Gryphon went on with a deep voice, are done with whiting. Now you know. And what are they made of? Alice asked in a tone of great curiosity. Soles and eels, of course, the Gryphon replied rather impatiently. Any shrimp could have told you that. If I'd been the whiting, said Alice, whose thoughts were still running on the song, I'd have said to the porpoise, keep back, please, we don't want you with us. They were obliged to have him with them, the Mock Turtle said. No wise fish would go anywhere without a porpoise. Wouldn't it really? Said Alice in a tone of great surprise. Of course not, said the Mock Turtle. Why, if a fish came to me and told me he was on a journey, I should say, with what porpoise? Don't you mean purpose? Said Alice. I mean what I say, the Mock Turtle replied in an offended tone, and the Gryphon added, Come, let's hear some of your adventures. I can tell you my adventures beginning from this morning, said Alice a little timidly, but it's no use going back to yesterday because I was a different person then. Explain all of that, said the Mock Turtle. No, the adventures first, said the Gryphon in an impatient tone. Explanations take such a dreadful time. So Alice began telling them her adventures from the time when she first saw the white rabbit. She was a little nervous about it just at first, with the two creatures got so close to her, one on each side, and opened their eyes and mouths so very wide, but she gained courage as she went on. Her listeners were perfectly quiet still as she got to the part about her repeating, "You are old, Father William," to the caterpillar, and the words all coming different, and then the mock turtle drew a long breath and said, "That's very curious." "It's all about as curious as it can be," said the Gryphon. "It all came different," the mock turtle repeated thoughtfully. "I should like to hear repeat something now." "Tell her to begin." He looked at the Gryphon as if he had thought it had some kind of authority over Alice. "Stand up and repeat, 'Tis the voice of the sluggard,'" said the Gryphon. "How the creature's order went about and make one repeat lessons," thought Alice. "I might as well be at school once." However, she got up and began to repeat it, but her head was so full of the lobster quadrille that she hardly knew what she was saying, and the words came very queer indeed. "'Tis the voice of a lobster, I heard him declare, you have baked me too brown, I must sugar my hair, as a duck with its eyelids, so he with his nose trims his belt and his buttons and turns out his toes, and when the sands are all dry, and he is gay as a lark, and will talk in contemptuous tones of the shark. But when the tide rises and sharks are around, his voice has a timid and tremulous sound." "That's different from what I used to say when I was a child," said the Gryphon. "Well, I never heard it before," said the Mock Turtle, "but it sounds uncommon nonsense." Alice said nothing. She had sat down with her face in her hands, wondering if anything could ever happen in a natural way again. "I should like to have it explained," said the Mock Turtle. "She can't explain it," hastily said the Gryphon. "Go on with the next verse." "But about his toes," the Mock Turtle persisted. "How could he turn them out with his nose, you know?" "It's the first position in dancing," Alice said, but was dreadfully puzzled by the whole thing, and longed to change the subject. "Oh, thanks for the follow, Soul Absentia. Thank you. Welcome. Welcome to story time." "Go on with the next verse," the Gryphon repeated. "It begins, 'I passed by his garden.'" Alice did not dare to disobey, though she felt sure it would all come wrong, and she went in a trembling voice. "I passed by his garden and marked with one eye how the owl and the panther were sharing a pie. The panther took pie crust and gravy and meat, while the owl had the dish as it shared some of the treat. When the pie was all finished, the owl, as a boon, was kindly permitted to pocket the spoon, while the panther received knife and fork with a growl and concluded the banquet by—" "What is the use of repeating all that stuff?" the Mock Turtle interrupted, "if you don't explain it as you go on. It's by far the most confusing thing I ever heard." "Yeah, I think you'd better leave off," said the Gryphon, and Alice, only too glad to do so. "Shall we try another figure of the lobster quadrille?" the Gryphon went on, "or would you like the Mock Turtle to sing you another song?" "Oh, a song, please, if the Mock Turtle would be so kind," Alice replied, so eagerly that the Gryphon said, in a rather offended tone, "No accounting for tastes. Sing her turtle soup, will you, old fellow?" The Mock Turtle sighed deeply and began in a voice choked with sobs to sing this. I'm sorry, I don't know how to sing these songs. Well, again, welcome. Thank you for stopping by, Soul. It's very nice to see you. "Beautiful soup, so rich and green, waiting in a hot tureen. Who has such dainties would not stoop. Soup of the evening, beautiful soup. Soup of the evening, beautiful soup." Oh, headbands. Okay, thank you. "Soup of the evening, beautiful, beautiful soup. Beautiful soup, who cares for fish, game, or any other dish? Who would not give all else for two? Pennyworth of a beautiful soup, pennyworth only a beautiful soup." Sorry. Air. "Beautiful soup, soup of the evening, beautiful, beautiful soup." "Chorus again!" cried the Gryphon, and the Mock Turtle had just begun to repeat it, but the cry of the trial's beginning was heard in the distance. "Come on!" cried the Gryphon, and taking Alice by the hand, it hurried off without waiting for her to end the song. Sorry, I had a coughing fit for a second. "What trial is that?" Alice panted as she ran, but the Gryphon only answered, "Come on!" and ran the faster, while more and more faintly came, carried on the breeze that followed them, the melancholy words, "Soup of the evening, beautiful, beautiful soup." Chapter 11. I really need a drink this time. Okay. I think we're getting close to the end. From what I can tell of the page I'm on. How's everyone doing? Doing okay? I hope you guys are resting, and if you're going to sleep, I hope you are falling asleep with sweet dreams. Chapter 11. The King and Queen of Hearts were seated on their throne when they arrived, with a great crowd assembled about them, all sorts of little birds and beasts, as well as the whole pack of cards. The knave was standing before them, in chains, with a soldier on each side to guard him, and near the king was a white rabbit, with a trumpet in one hand and a scroll of parchment in the other. In the very middle of the court was a table, with a large dish of tarts upon it. They looked so good that it made Alice quite hungry to look at them. I wish they'd get the trial done, she thought, and hand round the refreshments. But there seemed to be no chance of this, so she began looking about her to pass away the time. Alice had never been in a court of justice before, but she had read about them in books, and she was quite pleased to find that she knew the name of nearly everything there. That's the judge, she said to herself, because of his great wig. The judge, by the way, was the king, and he wore his crown over the wig, and he did not look at all comfortable, and was certainly not becoming. And that's the jury box, thought Alice, and those 12 creatures. She was obliged to say creatures, you see, because some of them were animals and some were birds. I suppose they're the jurors, she said, this last word 2 or 3 times over and over to herself, being rather proud of it, for she thought, and rightly so, that very few little girls of her age knew the meaning of it all. However, jurymen would have done just as well. The 12 jurors were all writing very busily on slates. What are they doing? Alice whispered to the Griffin. They can't have everything to put down yet before the trial's begun. They're putting down their names, said the Griffin in reply, for fear they should forget them by the end of the trial. Stupid things, Alice began in a loud, indignant voice, but she stooped hastily, for the white rabbit cried out, Silence in the court! And the king put on his spectacles and looked anxiously round to see who was talking. Alice could see, as well as she were looking over their shoulders, that all the jurors were writing down stupid things on their slates, and she could even make out one of them didn't know how to spell stupid, and that he had to ask his neighbor to tell him. A nice muddle their slates will be in before the trial's over. One of the jurors had a pencil that squeaked. This, of course, Alice could not stand, and she went round the court, got behind him, and very soon found an opportunity of taking it away. She did it so quickly that the poor little juror, it was Bill the Lizard, could not make out at all what had become of it. So after hunting all around for it, he was obliged to write with one finger for the rest of the day, and this was of very little use, as it left no mark on the slate. Harold, read the accusation, said the king. On this, the white rabbit blew 3 blasts into the trumpet and unrolled the parchment scroll and read as follows. Alice is a savage? Yeah, she is. She's a little brat, too. The Queen of Hearts, she made some tarts, all on summer day. The Knave of Hearts, he stole those tarts and took them quite away. Consider your verdict, the king said to the jury. Not yet, the rabbit hastily interrupted. There's a great deal to come before that. Call the first witness, said the king, and the rabbit blew 3 blasts on the trumpet and called out, First witness! First witness was the Hatter. He came in with a teacup in one hand and a piece of bread and butter in the other. I beg your pardon, your majesty, he began, for bringing these in, but I hadn't quite finished my tea when I was sent for. You ought to have finished, said the king. When did you begin? The Hatter looked at the March Hare, who had followed him into the court, arm in arm with the Dormouse. 14th of March, I think it was, he said. 15th, said the March Hare. 16th, said the Dormouse. Write that down, the king said to the jury, and the jury eagerly wrote down all 3 dates on their slates, and then added them up and reduced the answer to shillings and pence. Take off your hat, the king said to the Hatter. It isn't mine, said the Hatter. Stolen? The queen exclaimed, turning to the jury, who instantly made a momentum of that effect. I keep them to sell, the Hatter added as an explanation. I've none of my own. I'm a Hatter. Here the queen put on her spectacles and began staring hard at the Hatter, who turned pale and fidgeted. Give your evidence, said the king, and don't be nervous or I'll have you executed on the spot. This did not seem to encourage the witness at all. He kept shifting from one foot to the other, looking uneasily at the queen, and in his confusion he bit a large piece of his teacup instead of the bread and butter. Just at this moment, Alice felt a very curious sensation, which puzzled her a good deal until she made out what it was. She was beginning to grow larger again, and she thought at first she would get up and leave the court, but on second thought she decided to remain where she was as long as there was room for her. "I wish you wouldn't squeeze so," said the Dormouse, who was sitting next to her. "I can barely breathe." I can't help it," said Alice meekly. "I'm growing." "You've no right to grow here," said the Dormouse. "Don't talk nonsense," said Alice more boldly. "You know you're growing too." "Yes, but I grow at a reasonable pace," said the Dormouse, "not in that ridiculous fashion." And he got up very sulkily and crossed over to the other side of the court. All this time the Queen had never left off staring at the Hatter, and just as the Dormouse crossed the court, she said to one of the officers of the court, "Bring me the list of the singers in the last concert," on which the wretched Hatter trembled so, then he shook off both his shoes. Sorry, I can't read. "Give your evidence," the King repeated angrily, "or I'll have you executed, whether you're nervous or not." I'm a poor man, your Majesty," the Hatter began in a trembling voice, "and I hadn't begun my tea, not above a week or so, and with the bread and butter getting so thin, and the twinkling of the tea—" "The twinkling of what?" said the King. "It began with the tea," the Hatter replied. "Of course, twinkling begins with the tea," said the King sharply. "You take me for a dunce? Go on." "I'm a poor man," the Hatter went on, "and most things twinkled after that, only the March Hare said—" "I didn't," the March Hare interrupted in a great hurry. "You did," said the Hatter. "I deny it," the March Hare said. "He denies it," said the King. "Leave out that part." "Well, at any rate, the Dormouse said," the Hatter went on, looking anxiously round to see if he would deny it too, but the Dormouse denied nothing, being fast asleep. "After that," continued the Hatter, "I cut some more bread and butter." "But what did the Dormouse say?" one of the jury asked. "That I can't remember," said the Hatter. "You must remember," said the King, "or I'll have you executed." The miserable Hatter dropped his teacup and bread and butter and went down on one knee. "I'm a poor man, your Majesty," he began. "You're a very poor speaker," said the King. Here one of the guinea pigs cheered, and was immediately suppressed by the officers of the court. And that is a rather hard word, as I will explain to you how it was done. They had a large canvas bag, which tied up at the mouth with strings, and they both slipped the guinea pig head first and sat upon it. "I'm glad I've seen that done." "I'm glad I've seen that done," thought Alice. "I've so often read in the newspapers at the end of trials there was some attempt at applause which was immediately suppressed by the officers of the court, and I never understood what that meant till now." "If that's all you know about it, you may stand down," continued the King. "I can't go lower," said the Hatter. "I'm on the floor, as it is." "Then you may sit down," the King replied. Here the other guinea pig cheered, and was suppressed. "Come, that finishes the guinea pigs," thought Alice. "Now we shall get on better." "I'd rather finish my tea," said the Hatter with an anxious look at the Queen, who was reading the list of singers. "You may go," said the King, and the Hatter hurriedly left the court without even waiting to put his shoes on. "And just take his head off outside," the Queen added for one of the officers, but the Hatter was out of sight before the officer could get to the door. "Call the next witness," said the King. The next witness was the Duchess's cook. She carried the pepper box in her hand, and Alice guessed who it was, but before she even got into the court, by the way of people near the door began sneezing, all at once. "Give your evidence," said the King. "Shan't," said the cook. The King looked anxiously at the White Rabbit, who said in a low voice, "Your Majesty must cross-examine this witness." "Well, if I must, I must," the King said with a melancholy air, and after folding his arms and frowning at the cook till his eyes were nearly out of sight, he said in a deep voice, "What are tarts made of?" "Pepper mostly," said the cook. "Treacle," said a sleepy voice behind her. "Collar that Dormouse," the Queen shrieked out. "Behead that Dormouse! Turn that Dormouse out of court! Suppress him! Pinch him! Off with his whiskers!" For some minutes the whole court was in confusion, getting the Dormouse turned out, and by the time they had settled down again, the cook had disappeared. "Never mind," said the King, with an air of great relief. "Call the next witness." And he added in an undertone to the Queen, "Really, my dear, you must cross-examine the witness. It really quite makes my forehead ache." Alice watched the White Rabbit as he fumbled over the list, feeling very curious to see what the next witness would be like, for they haven't got much evidence yet. Imagine her surprise when the White Rabbit read out at the top of his shrill little voice the name Alice. Chapter 12. "Here!" cried Alice, quite forgetting in a flurry of the moment how large she had grown in the last few minutes, and she jumped up in such a hurry that she tipped over the jury box with the edge of her skirt, upsetting all the jurymen onto the heads of the crowd below, and there they lay sprawling about, reminding her very much of a globe of goldfish that had accidentally upset the week before. Oh, I beg your pardon, she exclaimed in a tone of great dismay, and then picking them up again as quickly as she could, for the accident of the goldfish kept running in her head, and she had a vague sort of idea that they must be collected at once and put back into the jury box, or they would die. The trial cannot proceed, said the king in a very grave voice, until all the jurymen are back in their proper places. All, he repeated with a great emphasis, looking hard at Alice as he did so. Alice looked at the jury box and saw that in her haste she had put the lizard and head downwards, and the poor little thing was waving its tail about in a melancholy way, being quite unable to move. She soon got it out again and put it right. Not that it signifies much, she said to herself. I think it would be quite as much as in the trial one way up as the other. As soon as the jury had a little recovered from the shock of being upset, and their slates and pencils had been found and handed back to them, they set to work very diligently to write out a history of the accident, all except the lizard, who seemed too much overcome to do anything but sit with his mouth open, gazing up into the roof of the court. What do you know about this business? The king said to Alice. Nothing, said Alice. Nothing whatever? Persisted the king. Nothing whatever, said Alice. That's very important, the king said, turning to the jury. They were just beginning to write this down on their slates when the White Rabbit interrupted. Unimportant, your majesty, means, of course, he said in a very respectful tone, but frowning and making faces at him as he spoke. Unimportant, of course, I meant, the king hastily said, and went on himself in an undertone. Important, unimportant, and unimportant, important, as if he were trying which word sounded best. Some of the jury wrote it down important and some unimportant. Alice could see this, as she was near enough to look over their slates, but it doesn't matter a bit, she thought to herself. At this moment the king, who had been for some time busily writing in his notebook, called out, "Silence!" and read out from his book, Rule 42, all persons more than a mile high to leave the court. Oh, hi, hello, thank you, Katsu Tatsuki, thanks for the follow, welcome to stream. Thanks for stopping by. We're reading bedtime stories with Alice in Wonderland. Hello, hello. How are you doing? Welcome. Everybody looked at Alice. I'm not a mile high, said Alice. You are, said the king. Nearly 2 miles high, said the queen. Well, I shan't go at any rate, said Alice. Besides, it's not a regular rule. You invented it just now. It's the oldest rule in the book, said the king. Then it ought to be number 1, said Alice. The king turned pale and shut his notebook hastily. Consider your verdict, he said to the jury in a low, trembling voice. There's more evidence to come yet, please your majesty, said the White Rabbit, jumping up in a great hurry. This paper had just been picked up. What's in it? Said the queen. I haven't opened it yet, said the White Rabbit, but it seems to be a letter written by the prisoner to somebody. It must have been that, said the king, unless it is written to nobody, which isn't usual, you know. Who is it directed to? Said one of the jurymen. It isn't directed at all, said the White Rabbit. In fact, there's nothing written on the outside. He unfolded the paper as he spoke and added, and it isn't a letter at all, it's a set of verses. Are they in the prisoner's handwriting? Asked another of the jurymen. No, they're not, said the White Rabbit, and that's the queerest thing about it. The jury all looked puzzled. He must have imitated someone's hand, said the king. The jury all brightened up again. Please, your majesty, said the knave, I didn't write it, and they can't prove that I did. There's no name signed at the end. If you didn't sign it, said the king, the only makes the matter worse. You must have meant some mischief, or else you'd have signed your name like an honest man. There was a general clapping of his hands at this. It was the very first really clever thing the king had said all day. That proves his guilt, of course, said the queen. So off with... It doesn't prove anything of the sort, said Alice. Why, you don't even know what they're about. Read them, said the king. The White Rabbit put on his spectacles. Where shall I begin, please, your majesty? Begin at the beginning, the king said gravely, and go on till you come to the end, then stop. There was dead silence in the court whilst the White Rabbit read out these verses. They told me you had sorry, it's really hard to read this. They told me you had been to her and mentioned me to him. She gave me a good character, but said I could not swim. He sent them word I had not gone. We know it to be true. If she would push the matter on, what would become of you? I gave her 1, they gave him 2. You gave us 3 or more. They all returned from him to you, though they were mine before. If I or she should chance it to be involved in this affair, he trusts to you to set them free exactly as we were. My notion was that you had been, before she had this fit, an obstacle that came between him and ourselves and it. Don't let him know she liked them best, for this must never be. A secret, kept all from the rest between yourself and me. That's the most important piece of evidence we've heard yet, said the king, rubbing his hands. So now let the jury... If any of them can explain it, said Alice. She had grown so large in the last few minutes that she wasn't a bit afraid of interrupting him. I'll give him 6p. I don't believe there's an atom of meaning in it. The jury all wrote down on their slates, she doesn't believe there's an atom of meaning in it, but none of them attempted to explain the paper. If there's no meaning in it, said the king, that saves a world of trouble, you know, as we didn't try to find a way. And yet I don't know, he went on, spreading out the verses on his knees and looking at them with one eye. I seem to see some meaning in them after all. Said I could not swim? You can't swim, can you? He added, turning to the knave. The knave shook his head sadly. Do I look like it? He said, which he certainly did not, being made entirely of cardboard. All right, so far, said the king as he went on, muttering over the verses himself. We know it to be true. That's the jury, of course. If she should push the matter on, and that must be the queen, what would become of you? What indeed? I gave her one they gave him two. Why, that must be what he did with the tarts, you know. But it goes on. They all returned from him to you, said Alice. Why, there they are, said the king triumphantly, pointing to the tarts on the table. Nothing can be clearer than that. Then again, before she had this fit, you never had fits, my dear, I think, he said to the queen. Never, said the queen furiously, throwing an inkstand at the lizard as she spoke. The unfortunate little Bill had left off writing on his slate with one finger, as she found it made no mark, but now hastily began again, using the ink that was trickling down his face as long as it lasted. When the words don't fit you, said the king, looking round the court with a smile, there was a dead silence. It's a pun, the king added in an angry tone, and everybody laughed. Let the jury consider their verdict, the king said, for about the 20th time that day. No, said the queen. Sentence first, verdict afterwards. Stuff and nonsense, said Alice loudly. The idea of having the sentence first. Hold your tongue, said the queen, turning purple. I won't, said Alice. Off with her head, said the queen, as the queen shouted at the top of her voice. Nobody moved. Who cares for you, said Alice. She had grown to her full size by this time. You're nothing but a pack of cards. At this time, the whole pack rose up into the air and came flying down upon her, and she gave a little scream, half of fright and half of anger, and tried to beat them off, and found herself lying on the bank with her head in the lap of her sister, who was gently brushing away some dead leaves that had fluttered down from the trees upon her face. Wake up, Alice, dear, said her sister. Why, what a long sleep you've had. Oh, I've had such a curious dream, said Alice, as she told her sister as well as she could remember them all these strange adventures of hers and that you have just been reading about. When she had finished, her sister kissed her and said, It was a curious dream, dear, certainly, but now run into your tea. It's getting late. So Alice got up and ran off, thinking while she ran, as well as she might, what a wonderful dream it had been. But her sister sat still just as she had left her, leaning her head, watching the setting sun, and thinking of little Alice and all her wonderful adventures, till she too began dreaming after a fashion, and this was her dream. First she dreamed of little Alice herself, and only again the tiny hands were clasped upon her knee, and the bright eager eyes were looking up into hers. She could hear the very tones of her voice, and see that queer little toss of her head, and keep back the wandering hair that would always get into her eyes. And still as she listened, or seemed to listen, the whole place around her became alive with the strange creatures of her little sister's dream. The long grass rustled at her feet as the white rabbit hurried by. The frightened mouse splashed his way through the neighboring pool. She could hear the rattle of the teacups at the March Hare as his friends shared their never-ending meal, and the shrill voice of the king ordering off her unfortunate guests to execution. Once more the pig baby was sneezing on the Duchess' knee, while plates and dishes crashed around it. Once more the shriek of the griffin, the squeaking of the lizard's slate pencil, and the choking of the suppressed guinea pigs filled the air, mixed up with the distant sobs of the miserable mock turtle. So she sat on with closed eyes, and half believed herself in Wonderland, though she knew she had but to open them again, and all would change to dull reality. The The grass would be only rustling in the wind, and the pool rippling to the waving of the reeds. The rattling teacups would change to the tinkling sheep bells, and the queen's shrill cries to the voice of the shepherd boy, and the sneeze of the baby, the shriek of the griffin, and all the other queer noises would change to the confused clamor of the busy farmyard, while the lowing of the cattle in the distance would make the place of the mock turtles very heavy sobs. Lastly, she pictured to herself how this same little sister of hers would, in the aftertime, be herself a grown woman, and how she would keep, though all her riper years, the simple and loving heart of her childhood, and how she would gather about her other little children and make their eyes bright and eager with many a strange tale, perhaps even with the dream of Wonderland of long ago, and how she would feel with all her simple sorrows and find a pleasure in their simple joys, remembering her own child life and the summer days. The end. We finished it. We finished Alice in Wonderland. Woo! That is very hard to read sometimes. Very tongue twisty. And it's written in a different time period, so the English is like all over the place. Yay! How are you guys doing? Did you enjoy the reading, or was it bothersome in any way? Sleepy? You sleepy now? So relaxing. That's good. That's good. That's good. Glad it was relaxing for you. It's the whole point of this stream. I love reading stories, and I'd love to read them to you guys, so you guys can have a chill night, relax. It's the middle of the week. You guys are almost there to your weekend. And there's still plenty of time to read more if anyone has suggestions. I do have another book. It's kind of a silly kind of book that I have to read. But I could read anything else. As long as I can find it and read it, and if I'm comfortable to anyway. Whatever I want. I could read the other book I have. It's more of a silly book, but I'll still read it. Okay. You guys have probably heard this one or seen it before. It is originally narrated in audiobooks by Samuel L. Jackson. Yeah, you probably already know what I'm talking about. The book is called Go the Fuck to Sleep. Okay. The cats nestle close to their kittens now. The lambs have laid down with the sheep. You're cozy and warm in your bed, my dear. Please go the fuck to sleep. The windows are dark in town, child. The whales huddle down in the deep. I'll read you one very last book if you swear you'll go the fuck to sleep. The eagles who soar through the sky are at rest, and the creatures who crawl, run, and creep. I know you're not thirsty, that's bullshit, stop lying. Lie the fuck down, my darling, and sleep. The wind whispers soft through the grass, hun. The field mice, they make not a peep. It's been 38 minutes already. Jesus Christ, what the fuck, go to sleep. All the kids from daycare are in dreamland. The froggy has made his last leap. Hell no, you can't go to the bathroom. You know where you can go? The fuck to sleep. The owls fly north from the treetops. Through the air they soar, they sweep. A hot crimson rage fills my heart, love. For real, shut the fuck up and sleep. The cubs and the lions are snoring, wrapped in a big snuggly heap. How is it you can do all this other great shit, but you can't lie the fuck down and sleep? The seeds slumber beneath the earth now, and the crops that the farmers will reap. No more questions, interview's over. I got 2 words for you, kid. Fucking sleep. The tiger reclines in the shimmering jungle. The sparrow has silenced her cheep. Fuck your stuffed bear, I'm not getting you shit. Close your eyes, cut the crap, sleep. The flowers goes low in the meadows and high on the mountain so steep. My life is a failure, I'm a shitty-ass parent. Stop fucking with me, please, and sleep. The giant pangolins of Madagascar are snoozing as I lie here and openly weep. Sure, fine, whatever, I'll bring you some milk. Who the fuck cares? You're not gonna sleep. This room is all I can remember, the furniture crappy and cheap. You win, you escape, you run down the hall as I nod the fuck off and sleep. Bleary and dazed, I awaken to find your eyes shut, so I keep my fingers crossed tight as I tiptoe away and pray that you're fucking asleep. We finally watched our movie, popcorn's in the microwave. Beep. Oh shit, god damn it, you've gotta be kidding. Come on, go the fuck back to sleep. The end. Isn't it wonderful? Hope you guys are doing okay. Kind of hard to whisper with this mic. I don't have one of those binaural audio ASMR mics. Maybe someday if people like my ASMR enough. But for now, I just have a regular mic. Let's see. Trying to see if there's anything else to read just for a little bit, because I still have quite a while before I can end the stream. If anything, we can just chill here. We don't have to read. Just chill in little, just chill land. Just hang out for a little while, as you might hear me ball snore in the distance, because now he sleeps. Very sleepy right now. Oh, good, good. I hope you get some rest soon and get some good sleep. Having a sneeze attack? Oh no, that's not good. It's probably a reaction from all your animals. By the way, I did receive the photo of you and Button. She's such a big girl now. I hope you can get some sleep soon. For those who are in my time zone, it's pretty late. It's almost midnight. But it is Wednesday, my dudes. Week's almost over. Let me see if I can find some. Yeah, there we go. Hope you're all having a good evening. I'm sorry, I don't really have much to talk about. I'm a pretty boring individual. I don't always have things to talk about. Yeah. That's why I decided to read stories instead. Stories are a little easier for me because I don't have to think of what to talk about. Like I said, I'm pretty boring. Yeah, lurk while you get ready for bed. Okay. Bedtime for a lot of you, I'm sure. I hope me reading and finishing Alice, as well as our fun little go to sleep book, relaxed you guys and helped you guys chill, find some sleep. You missed most of the story. It's okay. It's okay. I put all my VODs up on a YouTube channel. I have it linked in my about box down there and everything. I post the first half of the story there, and I will be posting this VOD up on YouTube as well. So if you want to listen to the whole story, go ahead. The last stream I did wasn't as quiet and chill as this one, because my setup got kind of finagled around a little bit, and the environment was a little more chaotic. So you have to pardon me with that. But all my VODs go to a YouTube channel. It's just called Sako Demon VODs. Link is down below. Sometimes I'll put up cute little videos I've done. I think I've only put up like one. I should really work on thumbnails, because right now I just literally export and say good to go. I really appreciate you coming by, Katsu. It's really nice to see you. And again, thank you for the follow. It's really nice to have you here. I hope we get to see you more often. I try to stream Monday through Friday, around 10 p.m. EST or so. Yesterday I couldn't. I wasn't feeling well, but the next 2 days will be Temtem. We'll be playing Temtem in the evenings. Right now I only have one night a week where I do these chill ASMR but story reading times. Unless it is more wanted. Oh, thank you. Thank you, sweetie. It's really sweet of you. Thanks for subscribing to my YouTube. It's really sweet of you. I need to change that thing. I didn't know it had a little GIF. I'll have to change it. But thank you. If this is more requested, ASMR and whatnot, then I will do it more times a week or after certain streams. But I'm still trying it out. Try to come by whenever you can. It's totally fine. I love the little emotes you're using. They're so cute. Oh, hi Corvus. Hello. Hi. Thanks for the raid. Hello. Hi Corvus. Hi Raiders. Oh, thanks for the follow, Glitch Dog. Hello. Hi. How are you guys doing? Go ahead and shout you out, Corvus. Oh, thanks for the follow, sweetie. Thank you. Oh, you were doing some art? What kind of art? How am I? I'm doing really good. I'm doing well. Glad to hear that you're doing well. Sorry you couldn't listen more. It's okay, Kat. If you need to sleep, go to sleep. It's okay. It's awesome to hear. Yeah. Homies in chat wanted ASMR and my model looks cute. Oh, thank you. Oh, thanks for the follow. Thank you. Usually my ASMRs are, oh my god, thanks for the follow. Oh my god, you guys are so beautiful. So wonderful. Working on commissions and animation stuff. Ooh, very cool. That's very cool. I wish I had art talent. I always give kudos to artists. You guys literally make VTubing and the world go round. But most of my ASMR nights, I read stories because I am very boring. I find it very hard to come up with stuff to talk about unless I'm interacting with chat. But I usually read stories. Today we finished Alice in Wonderland, and I read Go the Fuck to Sleep chat, because it's time for sleep. Didn't even know those were a thing. Yeah, streamers can raid other streamers by sending the chat the party to go say hello, to go share the love, give them viewer counts and stuff. It's really nice. It's a really sweet thing. Not go the fuck to sleep. Yeah, I actually did. I read that earlier. I put all my VODs in my YouTube, so you can always watch it there if you want. Or I can read it again. I don't mind reading it again. It's a very short book. That's cool. Yeah. Oh, thanks, Kat. It's very sweet of you. Thanks for the gifted sub. You're adorable. Thank you. Thank you. And again, thanks for the raid, guys. It's really nice seeing you all pop in. It's nice to see people want to listen to me and my rambles. Rambles are the best. Yeah, I hope so. Again, I don't have like the traditional ASMR mic of the, the binaural things. I just have my regular boom mic kind of thing. So I hope it isn't too bad. And so if you hear any snoring or weird noises in the background, that's my dog. My dog is Meatball. He's a Boston Terrier. He's got swoosh face. So he tends to have snory, breathy issues. You listen to people rant about nothing for hours. I could always rant about animals or random things. Such a cute name. Yeah. And I have a cat named Cheddar. It looks very similar to this cat right here, except my cat has no white on him at all. He's just a straight orange cat. And he's almost 2. He'll be 2 in September. I had him since he was 3 weeks old. Meatball, he is 10, and I've had him since he was 5 or 6. Yeah. Sometimes my cat will jump up on my desk when I'm in the middle of something or whatever, even in streams. So if random stuff happens on stream, that could be why. One stream, Meatball went and sat on the power button to the power strip that everything's plugged into, so that was fun. Because he likes to sit under my desk and by my legs. He just likes to be with me. But I have it fixed up now to where he probably can't access it anymore. So you might hear meowing sometimes because that's Cheddar wanting attention, or random dog snores because that's Meatball. And yes, I name my animals after food. Because food makes me happy. As it does for most people. Why not name my little babies after food? It's a very cool emote. Do I have any pics of my pets? I do. I have lots. Sorry. I post a bunch of animal pictures on my Discord. I can always post more there. Right now, my Discord, the bot to, food makes everyone happy unless you're a rock baby. True. The bot that gives roles and access to the Discord is shut down right now, so I have to fix it. So if you do join, just ping me or a moderator, and we can get you fixed in. You sound really nice. As I was looking for new people to raid, and I stopped for a bit here and immediately said, "Oh, they have a nice voice." Yes. Oh, that's so sweet. Thank you. I tend to be very self-conscious about my voice and my stuff, but I was encouraged by some friends, and Birdie Boba helped me with encouraging me to do these kind of streams. And I was watching Best Dad Tuber do storytime streams, and it was really, I loved it. And why not have a demon mama read you stories too? I am your local demon mama. I am here to make sure you have a good day and you smile. Your voice is really nice. You wish you had my voice? Oh, but your voice is your voice, and it makes it unique to you. I love Daddy's really cool. He's awesome. I love him. He's really cool. Yeah, his model's really cool too. He definitely fits the dad aesthetic very well. Normally in streams I have sound redeems, but for these I have them turned off. But I was thinking of adding ASMR specific redeems. I just don't know what exactly people would like to see. This is actually only my second ASMR stream ever. And the first one I didn't even label it as ASMR because I messed up. Um, so you guys can let me know what you'd like to see or hear or do in streams and whatever. And yeah. Okay, I see you in there, Glitch Dog. I have to give you this. And I give you this. And then I give you this. Alright. You guys should have access now. Yeah, thank you. Thank you for pinging me. You guys should have access now. I did have like select your own roles, but it is also broken. You're more than welcome to still do reactions, and I go through them every day, and I add roles that you reacted to. So you're still welcome to go do that. Otherwise, you can go through all the channels. You already found Cheddar's baby picture. Corvus, your thing is very cool. It's very cool, Corvus. Your little icon and the Plague Doctor thing. That's awesome. But there you guys go. I'm still working on finding a new bot. That's because the bot that's shut down is I really liked it. Hi Nap, hi, welcome. Hi. You must have had a long day. I love Plague Doctor stuff. I have little Plague Doctor, little Plague Nurse plushies. They're so cute. Kind of bot am I going for? Just something that can do auto rolls for like reactions or whatever, just like how Yui was, like how it's set up. It was just so easy to do with Yui. And I just need to sit down and actually look for a bot and actually like implement it, put it in. I just haven't actually sat down and focused on it yet. Yeah, PDB is a solid option. It's never broken. Okay. I'll look into that one. I'll look into it. Yui only recently went down. I guess they just couldn't fund their website or their servers anymore. It happens. It's sad, but it happens. Good to see you all there. Thank you guys for joining. It's been really sweet having a whole bunch of new friends come by and hang out with me and chat. Also enjoying Maki too. Okay, I think I've heard of Maki. I'm really bad at names of things. So I think I've seen that one around. I haven't really looked at a lot of bots. And just kind of based it off other servers I was in and looked at what bots they used and went from there. And just found the bots directly. My darn ADHD brain sometimes makes it hard for me to sit and focus on doing something like that, because then I get distracted and the next thing you know it's been 4 hours later and I still haven't found a bot. Sorry. You feel that? Yeah. It's crazy. Left. Damn. Okay. How's your day? Your guys' day been going? Anything new and exciting happen with you? Anything you want to like post or share that's been going on? I don't know if this works for you, but every time I see someone else with ADHD who says stuff like that, just white noise, it works wonders for me. Yeah, I always have some sort of noise on or very soft, gentle music. Like I love music, but listening to like ones with lyrics doesn't help because then I want to sing all the lyrics, and then my brain goes haywire. But I listen to like lo-fi stuff with better instrumental stuff. It actually helps a lot. Got a new hat that I've been working on emojis for a friend. Oh, nice, nice. Congrats on the new hat. I'm working on emojis for a friend. Very nice. You're welcome. I like hearing things that people are happy about or passionate about. Like if someone's really excited about something, really passionate about something, I like listening to them. There's a beauty. Hi, Penguin. Hi, hi. How are you doing? Whoa. Oh, we have been bamboozled by a phone. To bed? Okay. Go to bed. Good night, Sunny. Thanks for stopping by. Have good dreams. Good sleep. Get well rested for work tomorrow. You're really just sat down at the PC. Nice. Well, welcome to home, PC. Welcome, welcome. Thanks for stopping by. We finished Alice in Wonderland earlier. I read Go the Fuck to Sleep because it was funny. And we've just been chilling with some new friends from a raid and all that stuff, just talking, hanging out because I don't have any more stories to read at the moment. And yeah, I didn't want to end stream too early because it'd be ridiculous. Ending stream? Not quite yet. I try and go for at least a couple hours. I didn't think I would finish Alice in Wonderland today, honestly. I thought it would take all the whole time. But either I read too fast or we really got through a good portion of it the first time. Oh, you misheard. It's okay, it's okay. It's okay. Oh, yes, more head pets. I always like head pets. Yes, please. Head pet. Head pets are nice. They're always nice. Yay, head pet. No, no sound alerts. Not this time, Nap. No, 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 no. But here, you want a bonk? Bit. Here's your bonk. I turn off sound alerts for ASMR. I'm sorry, dear. You can get a bunk. Only my cat's purring could be heard on mic. That's one of the best ASMR sounds. Cat purrs. So good. So soothing. Plus he's not on my desk, so. Purr, 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 purr. Yeah. Cat and kitten purrs are one of my favorite sounds. And cat purrs actually vibrate at a frequency that heals bone density and stuff like that. So if you have an injury or anything like that, have a cat purr on you. Interesting, isn't it? A lot of things cats do that's actually really good for you is same with dogs. Not just on an emotional level, but for a physical level too. I know a lot about animals. Pets are so cute. They are. Pets are so cute. I agree. Pets are wonderful. You need to find your cat. She tucked herself away somewhere. Oh, well, I'm sure she's around there somewhere. Man, pets in general cute. Yeah, yeah. I love all animals. I have mostly worked with dogs and cats. A little bit on the small animal, mammal, exotic side, but I mostly worked with dogs and cats in my life, and I love them all. I would have everything if I could. Right now, I have a dog and a cat. In the house I live in, there's also another dog, a bearded dragon, hermit crabs, tadpoles now outside. So it's been really interesting. Is that your new hat? That's cool. That Psyduck is so cool. I love Psyduck. He's one of my favorites. Psyduck. Though if I have to say my favorite Pokemon would still be Charizard. It has been since I was little. Still has been. Newer-ish generations, Hydreigon, the three-headed dragon thing, became one of my favorites as well. But I love Psyduck, mostly because of the cartoon. Made him so cute and wonderful. He's just so adorable. And plus I feel his headaches all the time on an emotional level. Having a bad headache causes major damage to those around you, and yeah, same. Mood. A Pokemon might be tortured just because it was your first Pokemon. That's basically what it is with me and Charizard and Charmander. I'm pretty old, so I started Pokemon in Gen 1, of course. And I started the cartoon at the same time, like around the same time-ish. Cartoon came out a little later, but the Charmander episode was made me cry. It still makes me cry. But I love Charmander and his whole evolution line, especially Charizard. Shiny Charizard's freaking cool too. And then like the Mega Evolution's also cool. Yeah. I'm an old lady. Started Pokemon back in the day. Then there was Pokemon Yellow after Red, Blue, Green came out, and in Yellow it was like the first game you could have where a Pikachu followed you around, and it was the coolest shit. It was like, oh my god, the Pokemon follows you. Crap. I loved it. I played that the most. Like I started with Red, I think. Yeah. poggers. Very poggers. My favorite thing on the Nintendo 64, there was a game called Pokemon Stadium or whatever, and if you had a certain plug-in to your controller, you could play the Game Boy games on the TV, and I thought that was the coolest shit. I was like, oh my god, I don't have to stare at a teeny tiny screen that I can barely see with no backlight. I can look at a TV. And then the SPs came out. Game Boy Advance didn't have backlight, but the SPs, the foldable little ones, it was the first one with backlights, I think. That was cool. You could put it in your pocket, literally. You just fold them up, put them away. The only hard part of it was holding it to play those. Holding those was really difficult for me, because you have to hold this teeny tiny little box in your hand to play. But they were still cool. And then after that, I think it was the Game Boy, Game Boy Color, Game Boy Advance, Game Boy SP. I think there was a mini in there somewhere. And then after the SP, wasn't it the DS? Like the original DS, the big chunk and brick one? Because that was cool. That was really cool. When that first came out, it was like, holy crap. What is this technology? And some of the games actually like worked with like closing the DS to like stamp something on the other screen, and it was so cool. One of the Professor Layton games had that, and I was like so confused why it wouldn't work. And then one of the Pokemon games, once the DS kind of upgraded to like DS Lite and then DSi, one of the Pokemon games, one of the Pokemon, it's like a squid thing, like a dark squid. It can only evolve if it hits a certain level or levels up after that, and you hold your DS upside down. Like you had to hold it upside down. And the little gyro movement thing inside would detect it that you're holding it upside down. That was pretty cool. There was also a Yoshi game for DS's and Game Boy Advance that the cartridge itself had a little movement thingy in it. I can't remember what they're called exactly. And you had to tilt it back and forth to get Yoshi in places and whatnot. It was really cool. At the time, that was like state of the art. Chef kiss. Nowadays, the Switch is a thing, and Switch is wonderful. I love the Switch. I should probably stream more Switch games now that I'm settled and have an Elgato. But I don't really have a lot of Switch games. Unless you guys want to watch me play Tetris or Smash Bros. Or Pokemon Sword, Shield. You love Tetris? I like Tetris too. I'm not very good at it, but it's a lot of fun. I play the Tetris 99 just because you can get in and out of games quicker. So I have Animal Crossing. I did a couple Animal Crossing streams. Those are pretty chill. Maybe I should do an ASMR Animal Crossing night one night. That might be fun. I haven't played it in a long time, so there's, I'm sure, a lot of stuff to be done. Animal Crossing is really chill. I'm trying to think of other games I might have. Yeah, maybe I'll do that next time for the next ASMR stream next week. Because at the moment I'm only doing ASMR streams once a week. This is only my second one ever, honestly. And if people like them, I'll do them more often, or prefer them more often during the week, I'll do those. Or if people prefer, like, would want them more, and I can do them after other streams and stuff. Just have to see. So far, people seem to like it. And I enjoy it. It's calm for me, too. I don't have to talk so loud. I can just chill. I love reading and reading stories to people. So, I love doing that. I try and give voices to characters as I read, but I don't always work. It doesn't always work. Because sometimes I don't read ahead and I'm like, oh, that's wrong voice. Alice in Wonderland, man, that was hard to read. Lots of tongue twisters. One of them was like I felt like I had a stroke reading it. You love when people do that? Good, good, good. I love reading stories. I don't know why. I just like making people happy, making people relaxed and chill. Sometimes all you want is to sit down and listen to a story, but you don't really want an audiobook. You want something nice and quiet. Nice and quiet. Mm-hmm. Exactly. Um, I have lots of animal photos and stuff on my phone. Before I moved, because I recently moved across the country of where I live, I worked in an animal shelter, and so I post a lot of animal pictures and videos. Um, so if you ever have questions or anything, just let me know. But I'm usually one that spams animal photos. I love animals. Yeah, no problem. How'd the move go? It took about 3 days. Um, it was the first time my cat did a long distance travel, so he was stressed out of his mind. My dog was like, "Yoo-hoo, yay, adventure!" So he didn't mind too much. It was just a long drive because it was just a long drive. On day 3, I did the big stretch, like the longest stretch, because um, I went for like 13 hours straight on the 3rd day because I was just like, I just want to be there by now. I just want to get to my new home. Just want to settle. Yeah, yeah. My cat, poor thing. He was stressed at all the hotels we went to. We only went to like 2, but he got so stressed every time. Poor little thing. But now he's all settled in and he loves his little cat tree. It's actually, I don't know where he is right now. He usually sleeps in his little apartment thing on the cat tree, but he might be asleep on the bed. His favorite thing at around, I go to sleep pretty late. I have a weird sleep schedule, as most VTubers do, or just streamers in general. I go to bed pretty late, and sometimes I don't wake up till about noon. And Cheddar, my cat, loves to around 10. If I don't wake up early enough and his bowl is empty, he will walk on top of me and lightly bat my face with his paw. He doesn't use claws or anything. He just starts lightly batting my face, meowing at me until I get up. And then I put food in his bowl, and then he's satisfied. Very rarely, it's hey, I just want pets and attention. Wake up. Usually that's when I sit at my desk for the day, like at the beginning. Then he hops up here and it's just like, pay attention to me. No type. Don't do anything. No, no, no. You pay attention to me, mother. He's a sweet boy. He's a very good boy. So if on Discord, you ever see big, long, cryptic messages from me, that would be Cheddar's doing. It's Cheddar sending messages in his cryptic language. Mm. Um, yeah, I just let the messages go because it's funny. And plus people will know why I'm not responding, why I'm taking too so long to get to something or whatever. That message goes through and they're like, "Oh, that's why." Because sometimes I'll pick up my phone to respond instead, and Cheddar actually gets mad. He'll look at me and meow like, "Excuse me. I sat here so you could pay attention to me. Pay attention to me." Silly booger. but he's just a baby. He's not even 2 yet. Hmm. I'm probably gonna start wrapping up for the evening. Um, I need a break from sitting down, honestly, and I'm gonna get like a snack and some drinks and stuff, refill my tea. So probably before we leave, we're definitely gonna find someone to raid, and send the love to. I try to raid after every stream, at the end of every stream anyway. I try. Um, but I always ask what chat would prefer if I find a couple people. Would you like to watch Vampire Survivors, War ASMR, or um, a game about a cat called Stray? Good night, everyone. Take care of sleep. You too. Thank you so much for stopping by, and thank you everybody who came in, follows and raids, and chatted with me and hung out. You guys are all so sweet and wonderful. I hope you all have a good evening or day, no matter where you are. Um, since we were talking about cats and stuff, I'm gonna read my friend Leo. He's playing a game called Stray, which is about a cat. Thanks everybody for coming. Just share the love. I don't have a raid message, so just share the love however you can. Yeah, Stray is a really good game. I like it a lot. I haven't played it because I'm afraid of anything happening to the cat, but you guys have a good evening, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye-bye!